lot of you know, but I will explain. Proforca, David Brady is the artistic director of both Proforca Theatre, which is one of the companies that performs regularly here at the Lion and Unicorn, and he is also artistic director of the Lion and Unicorn, so responsible for programming. So tonight we're going to be talking about the play and the production that we have experienced tonight, as well as looking forward to what else is coming up here at the Lion and Unicorn. So lots of great hashtags for you there. I'm Terry Paddock. I also founded and love very much a company called My Theatre Mates. We work with a lot of shows here at Lion and Unicorn. And we're in an exciting transition period ourselves at the moment because we are going to be working more closely with another site that specializes in supporting small and small-scale theatre, and that's offwestend.com. So if you want to know about how we might work together in the future, please come and speak to me or my colleague Denham Spurs here, so Denham in the front row. Please do come and speak to him. Is that okay to plug that?
Yeah.
Great.
Can't take you back now.
Ask forgiveness, not permission. Anyway.
Every French theatre company has.
Right, okay, in my audience, who amongst you are associate artists here at the Lion and Unicorn? A few, awesome, thank you for coming. Who amongst you are with companies that have work coming up? Awesome, oh good, well we'll hopefully plug some of that as well to get us all coming back. And who knows they already have a question they want to ask or a comment they want to make about what we've seen so far tonight? That's a bit disappointing. Okay, right, okay. We'll come to you then, but I'll get us started. So I've introduced David. I'm joined on the cast by, you probably recognize these two, Gabrielle Nellis-Payne and Fred Wardell, is that right?
That's right.
Who are Alf and Cal. And also, I'm joined over here by Matt Wake and Lauren Ferdinand, who are also Cal and Alf. I don't want to dwell a lot on COVID because we're all looking forward to being positive, but I do think we should start with the obvious. We've got two casts here. Also, obvious, you and I, David, were meant to be originally having this post-show Q&A here in this spot in April 2020 with Gabrielle, I think.
Yeah.
Lately did not happen in April 2020.
Can't think why.
Can't think why. But I want to know actually, how, if at all, and there's an obvious difference, how, if at all, is the lately that we would have seen in April 2020 different from the lately that we see now in September 2021?
I'm terrible at maths, but it's 100% bigger in terms of the number of humans. 100% bigger. Yeah. So we originally, lately was supposed to be a cast of 2 people. We're very fortunate that one of the side effects of the pandemic, I suppose, is that you make choices around how you cast and run a show. So we have a whole separate cast who will alternate the roles of Callum and Alf at each performance. So tomorrow night it's Matt and Lauren's turn, and they will do exactly the same show. And the idea, that's why they're sitting so far away from each other, is because if they get closer together and both of them get pinged, we did it wrong. So the idea is that they're very safe and separate from each other in their own little bubble.
Yeah.
So.
And did beyond that very obvious one, did you change the script in any other ways? I know there were a couple of pandemic references, or maybe one pandemic reference.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think we've all been separate from each other, right? And I think one of the things about lately is separation. I think the separation element of the play comes out a bit more. We wanted to try and stay away from COVID as much as we can, but yeah, it's evolved a little bit over time. So.
And Gabrielle, I'll start with you because I mentioned you were meant to perform it in April 2020. Mm-hmm. Had you started rehearsing at all?
We'd had an R&D, and then we were kind of waiting on what was going to happen next and things like that. We had a couple of scenes that were sent through, and then it all went south with everything. It's been a long time coming, definitely.
And do you feel that you are approaching this character in a different way? Are you thinking about it any differently? Or just happy to finally get your teeth sunk in?
A bit of both, I suppose. I think that certain themes that are discussed in the play really were somewhat exacerbated during lockdown for a lot of people. And, hearing about first-hand friends and family and whoever who had gone through really dark places in such absurd, unfamiliar circumstances was definitely good feed into that. Yeah.
Okay, and then the other three, I do want to hear more about. What is this like for, well, okay, apart from performing separately, do you speak to each other at all? I mean, have you seen each other perform? You weren't watching tonight, so have you seen them perform?
No, we haven't. No, it was kind of a decision we made because I think quite early on we kind of felt we didn't want to kind of get in our heads about what each other were doing. We just wanted to make our own choices and not be influenced by, oh my god, that was a really good decision, I should be doing that, or anything like that. So I think we just wanted to keep it separate, but it's not been competitive at all. We talk quite a lot, and it's just like, it feels like a different show, really, I think. And just,
It's, we published big production galleries of the two separate production shots, and it is amazing. Like, you have these mirror images, but it does feel very different. You're obviously bringing different things to it. So Matt, tell us a little bit more. So are you completely rehearsing separately?
Yeah. So we all met. We all met each other for the first time, like, when was it? Like a month or two ago. We all went to. We all met here in London for a coffee just to sort of say hello, because, you know, we'd all been cast, and we'd all met David sort of at auditions, but we'd not met each other. So the four of us sat down for a coffee, and that was sort of where we met, and we took like a promo photo, a couple of promo photos, and that was it. So we met each other, and at the time we didn't actually know who would be paired with who. So we knew who was cast. Obviously we knew Fred and I were Callum, and Lauren and Gabby were Alf, but apart from that,
although they are not necessarily gendered names, they could.
Yeah, I think it's a really universal story about friendship and about two people looking after each other when they're, you know, going through a lot, and when, you know, life is throwing its challenges at you. Yeah, I think it's massively universal, both characters. Yeah.
So Fred, tell us a little bit more from your perspective. How did you prepare for playing the role?
I mean, I think I thought about how he would perceive his sort of sense of self and what he would kind of see happening to him. Because obviously there's a huge theme of mental health problems running through, but I don't know whether he would potentially see himself as having them. He'd just see himself as this ordinary person who has a string of bad things happen to him. So almost, you know, acknowledging that side of it, and then sort of moving on to find how he just got about his day to day, I guess. Me and David was saying, you can't be a sap, you can't be too nice. And it's like, yeah, but he's just going through such horrible stuff. But you know, when we were rehearsing, we found such lovely ways to kind of like bring him to life, I guess, just to really give him that, like, that warmth in the face of everything just going wrong. Or I hope that came across anyway.
Yeah, some beautiful performances tonight, and I want to come back and see it. But and I mean, have any of you as actors done something like this before, like alternate with another cast playing the same character? Because it's kind of in vogue now, isn't it? We've got Constellations in the West End. I mean, you know, COVID reasons, but what might be the pros for doing this without having COVID as a reason?
I guess like seeing kind of what Lauren was saying earlier, different people's interpretation of things. And with Constellations, for example, we hear about people going back for every cast, and seeing, you know, what one person's interpretation of a situation might be vastly different from someone else, and that makes for a really interesting theatre.
And for actors, you have a night off. Okay, I'm going to come to the question of the audience, but then David, I'm going to let you say, because you have obviously seen both performances. Do you know, obviously you're not going to say one is better than the other because they're both superb, but does one have a different kind of feel to the other? Is it like Lauren said, that they're like almost two different plays?
So those of you that know Jess Barton, who is our associate director, she can't be here tonight, took me outside, and she was like, these are two totally different shows. I'm like, don't be stupid, of course they're not two different shows, they're exactly the same. And then I sat and watched them and I was like, oh yeah, they're actually two different shows. And it's really interesting because the interpretations of the characters are so different, but the words are the same. So the rhythm of the show is the same, but it's a really weird experience, and obviously these guys did their first night last night, and it's the intensity of it is now like dials up every time it happens. So I was like, oh, that's intense in a really different way, and people laugh at lines in different ways. Poor old Debbie from the Nail Bar doesn't get a good time on either show. I don't know, is it poor old Debbie?
Debbie,
Deb's in the-
she's got
Deb's in the
eyelash
nail
thing.
bar.
So that's
Yeah.
unusual.
One small spoiler is that Lauren does this thing where she does eyelashes and she does this with her hands. She's sitting on a chair. It's the funniest thing I've seen for quite a long time. I think it's a very long week at that point. But yeah, there's nuances that people bring out in the show, and the senses of humour and the way that the two actors each interpret each other, and they've got their own in-jokes and stuff now. That really colours the show and makes it really interesting.
And how did we go last night?
Yeah, really well. Yeah, it was probably like the smoothest first run that we could like wish for. We had a really great audience as well. I'm sure this audience was amazing. But it was
We were really
yeah,
good.
really
Okay, hand in the audience. Denham, we'll come to you second. Behind you first.
Hello. Hi. Firstly, well done. I thought it was fantastic. With a show like that, and you're tackling these issues, how do you avoid, in your mind as actors, how do you avoid going towards like the cliche way of doing it? You know what I mean? Like, how do you avoid those, and how do you like make it real? Because to me, it felt really real. I was invested in what you were both doing. So how do you in your mind, or do you just not think about it and you just carry on, like just do what you think is right?
I think we should say that the play deals with issues of depression and suicide. So how do you deal with those kind of issues?
Yeah, like as actors, how do you, like, what I'm trying to say is like, you know, you watch like bad soap operas and they go towards those issues, and you just and it's not done properly, or it's defined properly, but
Not sensitive.
Yeah, like it's to me it felt like it was really real, and I just knew what was going to happen, but at the same time I just wanted to come and grab you and not make you do it, but you did, and it was sad and it was real. I just want to know how you sort of you really delved into that as an actor.
So let's hear from Fred, whose performance we saw, and then I'll say that.
I think looking at it from, I think when you get it's like you've got a character who's got depression or who has some kind of mental health problem, you then start to delve too much into that, and that's obviously not who they are. You know, that's just something that's come up through their experiences. So I think it's what I'm trying to say is like, instead of just going right, okay, so I've got to make people feel bad for me. It's like you have to get through their sort of life in a way, and just like I don't even know what I'm saying now. It's like, I don't know, it's just finding how they interact with other people, like how he deals with Alf is completely different to how he deals with his dad, how he deals with his mum, and like that was horrible. When that phone call always, like that voicemail always got me when we were rehearsing it. It's just, it's horrible. Like,
so
the idea that his mum can just like turn around and leave him, and I think that's where it comes from. It's not like, oh god, he's depressed. There has to be something in that. Like there are triggers for it, and I suppose that's how you'd see it in like normal life.
Yeah.
Like all depression is different to different people, just based on their experiences and how they deal with problems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of how I try to approach it.
Just mentioning that horrific scene in Call, can we credit the voice actors?
Yeah, so we're very lucky. So we have the loveliest lady in the world playing Callum's mum, Demelza. So Demelza is one of our associate artists. She works with us a lot. And I called her one day and said, I've got the best part for you. You don't even have to turn up for rehearsal. I'll do it. And it appeared on my phone moments later. She's great.
Okay. And how do you play a character like that without being a cliche?
I think, excuse me, I think Fred made a really good point earlier that, you know, you can read the script and you can look at the part and you can go, okay, yeah, Callum is depressed or Callum is having suicidal thoughts, whatever. But like what Fred said, like I don't think he's aware of, like, you know, I don't think he, as a you know, the character would stop and go, oh, actually, I'm depressed. Like, I think he's just experiencing it as he's experiencing it. I don't think he himself would put a label on it. So I think a useful way to look at it is to kind of remove, you know, you look at the script and you go, okay, this is what we're dealing with, but then remove those labels. So kind of take away when you're working on the character, take away the fact that, okay, he's quite clearly depressed, take away the fact that he's having suicidal thoughts, and rather than playing those conditions and those, you know, buzzwords that we're so familiar with, you know, culturally now, look at what's happened to him, like play the reality of what he's going through rather than the condition, like as a label and as what you think it is. Take that all away and just be like, okay, what's he dealing with? Okay, so this happened to him when he was a kid, this happened to him, this happened to him, this happened to him, and rather than trying to accumulate them all into one thing that you're trying to play, just play the reality of those individual things and just, you know, ask, okay, well, if I was in that situation, you know, what would I do? How would I behave? You know, someone said to me that every character you play is just you with a load of what ifs. You know, so I think it is just, you know, don't look at Callum as depressed. Look at him. What if this was real? What if this happened to you? What if the situation was genuine? That's
really well put. Thank you. I should say also, we're having this discussion on the eve of World Suicide Prevention Day, aren't we? And the programme and the theatre recommends that for people who are touched by these issues, they contact.
There's some resources on the programme, which is the QR code just at the top. It's the campaign against living miserably and Samaritans.
Okay, great. Denham, your question, please.
Yeah, I had a question. It's a little bit boring in comparison, obviously. It's about budgets. A question about the budget in terms of about having an extra cast. How you managed that, and were there concessions you had to make in other aspects? What was the situation there?
We budget very carefully before we do a show. I said this to Terry before we talked about there's never any time and there's never any money, and that's never changed, particularly after a year where we've been closed for a long time. I think it's always financially important to do the right thing when we're paying actors and that kind of thing, so that's all covered and taken care of. It's a theatre decision to make sure that we plan carefully, and in terms of economy, actually, it doesn't need a set. I don't think it needs a massive set. It doesn't need and I'm always saying to the artists that come in here to make work, please don't put the barricade from Les Mis on this stage. It won't fit. It's very heavy. So actually, it forces us to be economical with how we tell stories. And actually, the bar is set. I think every time we make a show, I try and take one piece of set away. So actually, I think we're down to two stools now, and some objects, which I think is pretty good. And the projections obviously help. So we've upgraded the projections.
Yeah, the projections are great and the soundscape's great. I was looking at one of the reasons I wanted to check the program was I was thinking, is there, you know, are you crediting? Do you have a lighting designer, sound designer, video projection? And no, you don't.
We all do it in-house. So if the theatre company does it in-house, we've got enough expertise that we do it.
Yeah.
So we cobble stuff together with a very strong idea of what the show looks like and stuff from the start. So.
Okay, and I'm going to come back to you, Nigel, because there's a hand over here. Yes.
Oh yeah, I didn't put my hand up, but I've got a question anyway. First of all, well done. It was really, really great. My question was actually for David, in that obviously you have to have two casts because of COVID, but do you think if COVID wasn't a thing that it would be something that you would potentially continue?
The rehearsal process has been such a joy, and it's 5 days, 5 very intense days, 14-hour days. The more people you can have involved in the project brings more colour and light and nuance to a project. So yeah, double casts for everything from now on. Pay for it later.
And it is being recorded, just to remember that. Nigel?
I might be cheeky and do 2 questions.
We'll see about that.
The first one was a kind of creative decision to use videos, and we'll just come back to that. I thought it worked incredibly well. I have seen productions where it doesn't work well, so I just wanted to just an understanding of that. What was the decision to use it? Because a lot of I thought the writing and the language was really well. I thought it was really well written. I'm squeezing in the question, and often you want to have the audience kind of picturing and imagining the scenes themselves. So therefore having a kind of video projection of those things can kind of disrupt that kind of that emotional kind of engagement that you're having. But I have to say I think it worked incredibly well, and it kind of added to the emotion. So firstly I think well done on the decision, but how did you get to that process?
We talked about this earlier on, and the sort of inspiration for Lady was sort of cinematic films. I would always call them like Odeon moments. You know the sort of films that you know the sort of adverts that you see. Do you remember we all used to go to the cinema and when they used to watch the advert and they were always like big sweeping drone footage on the beach and that kind of thing. And actually, if you see the poster for the image of the show, this is kind of where we started. And it's almost like how you extrapolate that out. And actually, this is the smallest room in the world, but it also can be the biggest room in the world. And actually, the video helps us to achieve that sense of scale. And it was almost like 2 people in a room can be tricky, and you can only light so many people's beautiful cheekbone faces in one particular way. So the video actually just gives us that depth. And it was an important decision to kind of put in a better projector. This is the 3rd projector this week. This one works now, and actually it just helps to kind of tell a story, because when you've got 2 people alone in a room, without that, it loses that sense of scale, and we just wanted for this one to kind of make it bigger, wider, big footage, including the catapult that nearly kills everyone.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Kate, and thank you for putting this lovely show on.
Hi, Kate.
I was just wondering, did you, again on the video or audio side, did you collaborate with a videographer or a composer?
No, it's all in-house, so we all get together and kind of pull things that we like together, sit down and open QLab and start just slinging stuff in.
So the music is original?
It's stock, but it's good stock, I think. We've got a good source for it. And tonally, it sits as part of the R&D process. Occasionally, we'll sling in a piece of music and everybody will turn around and go, oh shit, don't do that. But actually, it's part of that process of trial and error, and we usually find something by then that will work with the tone of the piece. So, yeah.
Is that true of the writing as well? How is this piece created?
Well, hold on a moment, please, Dana. You didn't raise your hand. But you're thinking along the same lines I am, but I want to just give a little bit of backstory to this. So this piece is the 3rd play written or co-written by James Lewis, specifically for Proforca to perform at the Lion and Unicorn. The first was Feel. Who saw Feel? Who was in Feel? Okay. The second was and Feel was a 4-hander, but again very much about couples. The second was At Last, which was set in a dystopian future and highly political and crazy and very of our moment. Who saw that? At Last? Yeah. You weren't in it.
No.
Anybody in it? You were in it.
I'm the voice of the dystopian.
Oh right, okay, right. And then this one, which is kind of different again. So just first of all, before we get to Dennis' point, tell us a little bit about the journey with these plays. Do you consider it a journey?
Yeah. So Feel is very much the millennial urban London experience. So Feel is a very London story. At Last is big world events. So At Last deals with the fall of a far-right totalitarian regime one day. We'll get there. Who knows? And it's about as big a story as you can tell. We would At Last, basically the climax of At Last is a massive protest in Trafalgar Square as the prorogation of Parliament protests were taking place in Trafalgar Square at the time. So it all felt very real. And then lockdown happened and it became true. So I'm manifesting a nice holiday by the beach for the next one. This is a much smaller story. It was as small as we could make it, as far away from London as we could make it, and really focusing down on humans that we hopefully like with challenges. So it's a recurring theme, but smaller.
And does that kind of lead into what you were going to say?
Yes, yeah. So I just was wondering you said that it's quite a collaborative process. Is that true of the writing too? Do you kind of, is the writer in the room, or is that something you can kind of say, oh, we have this idea, you write to him and say, we're going to make this change, or whatever, how does that work?
Yeah, collaborative process. We do a lot of R&Ds, and actually we've been very lucky, so I'm just going to call out Jack in the corner. So Jack, wherever you are.
Jack, raise your hand. Yeah.
And Kim, all involved in the writing process. And obviously we've had other people involved to kind of give their input too. So it's with the writer throwing, we've got a big trestle table in there, a big sheet of paper, lots of marker pens, and then you get the script. So.
But it's interesting that you make the distinction between Feel and this play about being about Londoners and people from outside London, because it always seems to me that we Londoners, most of us are from somewhere else, aren't we? So who's from somewhere else? Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Northamptonshire.
Northamptonshire?
I'm from Hertfordshire, so not far, but technically not.
Yeah, Gabriel?
I'm from Essex.
Essex?
I'm from Loughborough.
Loughborough?
I'm from Coventry.
So who else is from somewhere outside of London? Is there anyone who's actually from London? Oh, well done you. But can those of us who are not from London, maybe small towns, can you relate to this feeling of being from shithole on sea and wanting to escape it?
Yeah, probably not so. I did love where I'm from. I live in London now, but yeah, it definitely was a lot smaller than London. A lot less public transport. Yeah, and it's been so different coming here, and yeah, there definitely were feelings of boredom that I was like, yeah, I need to escape this now. So I could bring that in a bit to the show. Yeah.
And could you ever go back?
Maybe Hertfordshire, like yeah, maybe not. Yeah, not London.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm from a small town, and you do have that, like, you know, that dual thing of it is a part of you, and you associate so much of like yourself and your memories and your friends and loved ones or whatever with that place, but also, you know, as I say, like my town is very small, it's quite insular, like, and there is that thing of I don't want to be here forever. So it's a dual thing, and like neither is more. You know, there are days where you're like, I've got to get out of here, man, and I've got to go. And there are days where you're like, nah, but this is absolutely everything I love. And so, you know, there's never an answer. It's always a bit of both. And
that's something the play captures really
yeah,
well.
massively.
Tension.
Yeah, massively.
Who else wants to love in on that? Gabrielle,
Well, I was gonna-
or Fred?
sorry,
No, you go for it, Fred.
I was going to say mine's a very landlocked shithole because it's nowhere near the sea at all.
Okay,
But it's
but it's a shithole.
I mean, yeah, it's
I mean, you
such
said
a, it's interesting because it's like such a big uni town as well.
it. Yeah.
So when the students are in, it's a completely different place because the population essentially doubles, and then you know everyone goes away and you spend summers there and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, I should probably get out of here at some point. But I do love going back there. Like I think having moved away to other places, it's been nicer to come back home because it does remind you why you loved it in the first place, even if you had to get out eventually.
Yeah. And finally, Gabrielle.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to get out of my town. I remember like failing my first driving test and crying with the instructor in the car because I couldn't get myself around anywhere. So I was like very keen to leave, and then too much information. And then, yeah, and then when as soon as I could get myself around, I did. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so before we move on and talk about the season, any more questions specifically about this play? Stephanie?
Actually, mine builds on what we've just been talking about. But I was thinking that given the current climate and what a lot of younger people in this country are going through, this is a show that would hugely resonate to non-London audiences. Are there any plans to take it out into the
Proforca has done a lot of touring.
Yeah, but never enough, and I really want to. And we've been very unlucky with touring. Theo was supposed to go and then didn't. Alas was supposed to go, and then something happened. And I would love lately to break the spell and take it on tour. So yeah, that would be a real aim for it. We are going to my hometown Coventry, which is we've got a relationship with the Old New Theatre in Coventry. I'm probably not supposed to say it, I'm going to say it anyway, 29th of October.
Yay!
Contract landed on my desk this afternoon.
Oh,
so.
Congratulations. And if you do tour, will you go to all of their respective hometowns?
Well, I don't know.
Would you want to?
They won't be welcome there anymore.
I think we're going to get run out of one of them. But yeah, if we can, then we will. I think obviously the shows should speak to the places where people are from. You get a real sense of people's audiences. Plus, there's lots of their friends around, so people buy tickets,
Yeah.
which makes it really fun.
More questions about this show? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask sort of with the actors, because obviously you've got the themes of depression and suicide, and I think the root of that, or at least partly the root of that, is this feeling of isolation and also the need to escape as well with Alf. This isn't a play about COVID or the pandemic, it gets referenced a little bit, but do you think the experiences of the pandemic have influenced sort of decisions as actors with how you approach those themes and topics, and do you think it might affect if you approach these themes and topics again? Those experiences, yes, ending the sentence.
So if I summarise it, how has COVID affected you as actors with how you approach these subjects? Is that kind of?
Yeah, that's a much more succinct word.
Okay. That's why they pay me the big bucks. No, they don't. Who wants to go first? Actors.
Yeah, I mean, I think at its heart lately is a play about friendship or undefined relationship. You know, it's about the people in our lives, no matter what kind of label you want to put on them, that have an effect on you and that are important to you, and to a varying degree. And I think for me, the link to COVID isn't so much isolation or feeling trapped. It's more being forced to evaluate. Because when the lockdown happened, it was all completely random and completely new, and everyone dealt with it very differently, and you found yourself wanting to check up on certain people and distancing yourself from certain people, and like personally, I think a lot of relationships and friendships, whether intentionally or not, were reevaluated and were kind of put into a very strange situation they hadn't been in before. So I think that, for me, the kind of evaluation of friendship and the acknowledgement of who exactly plays what role in your life and how important that is and how desirable that is, I think is the closest link with lately. And that it always fluctuates. Like Callum and Alf's relationship is never one thing. It seems to be changing all the time, and from our own desires and external influences. And I think that was very reminiscent for a lot of us about how COVID forced us to look at our relationships in our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that kind of support network that we all hopefully had during COVID, that was so close to what Callum and Alf were for each other constantly throughout the play, like you say, with all their different roles to each other. And I think that, but yeah, also on the other side, just being completely bored of just sitting in your room and thinking, just get me out anywhere, literally, even if it's the supermarket. Alf obviously wants to go a bit further than that. But yeah, those feelings definitely helped, I think, with how I felt with researching this role and bringing it to life.
Fred?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you can have without just waffling on, but I think it's so important that I think the evaluation of time as well, like building on what Matt was saying about relationships, is like, my parents are going, this is great, we've got so much time like to spend with everyone, and I'm just sat there like going a bit existential and like, oh my god, I'm never going to get out. And it's like, it was so interesting just to see like the difference in people and how they perceive their lockdown, their time in lockdown. They're loving this like family time, and so was I, don't get me wrong. But it was like, I just want to be out and doing stuff again. So I get that sort of push-pull of like, I want to be here, but I also want to just have the option to be somewhere else, and how much that is.
I was kind of conflicted with a sense of like loneliness and not that during lockdown, because in my flat, everyone who's in my flat just kind of left. They went back to their home families, and I was just like, this is my home. I'm not going to leave. And yeah, I think at the start it was really, really great. I really liked having a space to myself, and then people would be calling me for like 8 hours a day, and I was like, oh my god, everyone needs to just fuck off. And so I can relate to those feelings of Alf, where it's like, yeah, I love you or whatever, but like, oh my god, I need to get out. And I was on my own, but I need to leave London or whatever. There was certainly feelings that fed into it. Yeah.
And so, just briefly, do you think this experience of the past 18 months has changed you as actors versus how you approach this role? Has it changed how you think about acting? Anything? You can just say no.
Yeah, I feel like it made me really desperate to act again. And I felt really like grateful to be doing this now, and still in a way where things aren't completely back to normal. Looking out at an audience with masks on isn't like ideal, but I think I don't know what to say now.
No, get on with it. One more time.
I think it forces you to think about how you can work on what you do without the resources that you assume are necessary to do it. Like, you have to have a rehearsal room, you have to have someone to act with, and it forced you to try and think of, okay, how can I develop, acting and what I like doing, or creativity on my own in this. You had no choice. You had to think about that, and I think that's a lesson that was
so you almost have to become more creative.
Yeah.
When you have less access to do the work. Okay, so talking about the work beyond this work, what's coming up next here at the Lion and Unicorn, David Brady?
Everything. Nuns, flies, monks, lots of different stories from lots of brilliant fringe theatre creatives.
So you are programmed now here until?
Openly in public until the end of December.
And how many different companies are coming during?
14.
14 different companies.
Possibly 16, if they get the contracts back.
Yeah.
Then we are programmed up until March of next year, which is our 3 years being here.
Wonderful. Oh, we'll have a birthday party. And so there were hands in the audience from companies bringing work, so let's hear your plugs. Who's bringing work? Tell us about your work. Yep.
Yeah, I'm Joseph Miller. I'm bringing on my play Drivers in 2 weeks' time at the Lion and Unicorn Theatre. Yeah.
And what's your company?
It's the Uncle Ian Theatre Company.
The Uncle Ian Theatre Company. That sounds a good one. I love the name. If you want a Q&A and you want to explain the name, feel free to.
Hi, my name is Ryan. My theatre company is called Waiting in the Wings. I run it with my friend Josh, who can't be here this evening. We're doing our first Scratch night, which is called Starting from Scratch, and there's 6 different plays, and they're all very different from each other, and there's a company of about 9 actors, I can't remember because half of them left, we have to find some new ones. And yeah, I hope it goes.
And what's the date of that?
That is Sunday the 19th and Sunday the 26th.
Of which month?
Of September.
September, right.
So very soon.
Very soon, okay. Any other hands? Yeah, here? Oh, yes, of course.
We're Hook Theatre, I'm working with Mrs. Holly.
Hello.
We're going to be hosting, is it our 3rd Scratch night? Yes, 3rd Scratch night on the 3rd of October. There's all sorts of things involved, like comedians, plays, we're doing spoken word, and it's really good fun, so I hope you can see it.
I mean, we're supposed to have it like a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
so we're dying to do it.
So you are desperate. There was another hand, yep. Ross, right?
Yes, it's Ross.
Hey,
Fight or Flight. No. I'm Fight or Flight with Jess Barton as well, who helped direct this. And we're associate artist of Lion Unicorn. And I'm also acting in a show with Push Me Productions called A Very Short Interval, starting on the 26th of October.
We should also add that the excellent coughing sound that you heard earlier on in the performance as the voice of Callum's dad is Ross in the
Thank
crowd.
you.
Yeah, I wasn't just being weird.
It was a horrible time to do that.
Yes, thank you, I appreciate it.
It was a brilliant performance. Well, did I miss any hands? Yep, here.
Hi, I'm Tom. We are Periphery Theatre, and we've got a show Blue Bottles on from the 4th to the 7th of November. We are the respective flies from the it's sort of an absurd tragic comedy exploring loneliness and flies.
Fantastic. Okay, have we covered everybody? We haven't left anyone. Oh, then one more. Yep.
I'm Kimberly and this is Jane from London Playwrights.
Hello.
An organisation who supports emerging writers in London and beyond. So we're bringing a festival here in December where we're going to be showcasing some really exciting new writing.
Oh, how many new writers are you?
7, you think?
7, that's great. So a lot of exciting stuff going on, and a lot of talent in the room. And I'm excited to be back on the stage, hearing all about this. So, for those on the stage with me, final question: how good does it feel to be back on stage? You can just say one-word answers, or you can.
That's bloody good, isn't it?
Bloody good.
Yeah, the best. Yeah.
Best.
It's just so good. It's so much fun. It's so nice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And David, how do you feel seeing your work finally brought to life by these 2 amazing casts, and looking forward to all of this happening in your theatre?
It's a privilege. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Wait, don't cut that. So what I was going to say is now we are going to do a socially distanced social media money shot is what I call it. You'll know this, having done this with me before. So all of you who said you were on social media, please get your phone, take photos with the hashtag and everything, and will you share it on whichever social media you're on, like David said? Will you do that? Everyone nodding? Yes. And now you can join me, please, in thanking Gabrielle, Fred, David, Lauren, and Matt. And all